Our first speaker from AFBU is Cath. Cath has had 21 years in the restaurant industry and is one of the founders of AFBU. Please welcome Cath.
Happy May Day, y'all. Thank you so much. I appreciate everybody coming out. The first time I got PTO, I actually took a vacation. This was back in 2008. Back then, I worked in an office environment and didn't make much, but that PTO gave me the security to have time for myself. I've always returned to the service industry, not because it was comfortable, because I genuinely enjoy it. I love my customers and make regulars quickly. I'm a career server and bartender, and I'm proud of what I do. I'm here to give some personal accounts of mine and others, because not everyone is familiar with how the service industry works. Just like how I don't know the ins and outs of a hospital, and I'm not expected to, but when I hear my customers in the medical field discuss their day-to-day goings-on, it gives me insight, and I'd like to share some of that with you today. We've all read the online ads that say, looking for rock stars for our fast-paced, fun work environment, flexible schedule, and we know it means that they will work you to death because we're family. Fast-paced often means understaffed. Fun and flexible often means undermanaged, and you won't actually get the hours you were offered in the interview, whether that means more or less. Not even their competitive wages are ever advertised up front, all the more to pressure you to make a choice after an interview process that is often inconsistent, unprofessional, and riddled with red flags. So in this family, and make no mistake, oftentimes they do become your family for a time at least. You are often exploited for your labor, forced to choose between childcare and other bills, work different hours than you originally signed up for, and have put in so much emotional labor, but at the end of it, your family is indistinguishable from any other abusive relationship you found yourself in. Trauma bonding should not be a matter, of course, for working in our industry. These problems articulated in every smoke break room area, in every walk-in cooler, in every service industry bar after a week of endless service. These problems are all tied to what the AVO FNB United is asking for. So what do families do? And we take care of each other, scramble around the sections in our restaurant and still fill every seat in the restaurant. Because the business needs all those dollars and we do too, and our mental and physical health suffers because of it, as well as customer service, which is at times the only metric employers and owners use to measure success. We know that customers don't notice we have a table of 20 plus 5 two-tops who inevitably all sat down within 15 minutes of each other, and we all do this while sick, injured, pre-pandemic, in the depths of COVID lockdowns during the lean times of the winter and booming seasons of the year. Well, if this is our family, it's a toxic one, even though they can be a lot of fun to hang around. So in my actual family, last time I checked, my mom wouldn't want me to work sick, let alone interact with hundreds of other people. But this was our reality pre-COVID. COVID was a blessing, and I got lucky. My current boss paid me to be out just earlier this year, but I know not everyone has been so lucky. This can be, and often is, a paycheck to paycheck, or if not, day-to-day industry. We all know that as soon as the money comes in, it goes right back out to pay our bills, so we depend on you for our income, since many of us still make $2.13 an hour. And while the 3 days PTO we're asking for isn't much in the face of a 365 year, it's a start. It's something we have been begging employers for years, but we never knew it was an option. Plus, since North Carolina is a right-to-work state, it's hard for us to want to ask our employers for more reasonable accommodations out of fear of retribution, because in this town and state and elsewhere, asking for a livable wage can be a fireable offense. It wasn't too long ago that I had pneumonia twice and knew it and still went to work because I knew I couldn't miss those days. So I splashed water on my face, heaving in the alley out of exhaustion, and didn't even consider not working. It didn't cross my mind not to work. Weird and awkward, right? Talking about getting used to working in a toxic industry, and I am not alone in my story. How many of us have come back to work with a broken arm and rib and carried plates to tables and joked about the incident that got us there because we couldn't afford to take off? This happened to a friend of mine, and they used one arm for weeks to type on the POS because our family, our coworkers helped out, but that company could no longer able to afford the health insurance, and the worker made too much to qualify for the Affordable Care Act. So we went down to the health department to see what we could do for them, and it was still the runaround because they weren't insured, and surgery was still needed while out of work, medically speaking, but not financially. It all worked out. They ended up working as soon as they could, hence why their work family ended up helping out to make sure they could keep money on the table. And just recently, if you all were paying attention, if you're part of the F&B tribe or Wax or whatever, we learned about a cookie company in town that makes $10 an hour pay and wage theft by the owner. They were stealing the tips, and not including the retaliatory and firing that resulted from that due to the exposed actions that the actual employee did not make public, but instead a member of their family. The right to be fired state is what right to work actually means. It protects the employer and not the employee. I worked for an owner that refused to pay one manager if another one clocked in, and this was that shift changeover. And they refused to pay the manager coming in their hourly and only paid the severely out-of-date wage of $2.13 an hour. And none of this is illegal, but it's a lack of incentive for us to want to stay in this industry. An industry that is important to the economic character of this town, and many of those workers left in droves, as we see every time we go out to eat. In fact, just a few days ago, calling on y'all, Wendy's, I was at a fast food restaurant, and they had to close their inside by 2:30. And I was on foot and had to contemplate walking through the drive-thru, but then that felt awkward. So while walking out the building, I heard one of the workers say they couldn't lock the doors because no one had a key to lock them, and they had a screwdriver in hand trying to figure it out because the closing shift was only going to consist of one person. F&B United can help them talk with their workplace about fair scheduling, though I take it that their lack of fair scheduling also coincides with their idea of a living wage. Also recently, I worked in an establishment where the schedule would come out the day of the work week, but I knew I always opened on Mondays, so that didn't matter for me as much, but it does matter as much only because my partner wasn't employed. So childcare wasn't an issue as much. If they had been working, this would have been an unsustainable model for me, just meaning I happened to be lucky. What about the employers who offer benefits but only at full time, knowing you only get 30 hours a week? Currently, if you work downtown and drive and don't have parking, your $2.13 an hour workers were paying a minimum of $12 a day, and now it's $20. So if you work 4 days a week and you work 48 weeks out of the year, that's $3,848. Obviously, there are a lot of hardships for the food and beverage worker in Asheville, but what we really want to focus on now is 3 days paid time off, fair scheduling, and a living wage with incremental raises to show appreciation. So we get belittled, yelled at. We are our customers' therapist, and we do it all with a smile. F&B United cannot solve all the problems in the hospitality industry, and there are many more, but think of it this way. I want to support establishments where workers are treated fairly and feel just as important as we all are, because during the height of COVID, we became essential workers. What happened to that rallying cry? It didn't disappear, it just became muffled. I know you still hear it, so that's why we're gathering together today to get our voices back, behind the microphone, back in your face, because we don't have to do this work, we choose to do this work.
Give it up for Cath!